Hello there and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Today, as you can see, we are discussing the great state of Alaska. I've actually been to Alaska, so the state holds a special place in my heart. I may move there someday. I think it would be nice to live there. So when I hear people saying the state is going blue, I obviously get a bit concerned. So first off, Alaska went for Trump by 10 points. That's barely safe with my margins and likely with most other YouTubers. Not YouTubers, but just people in general. A lot of other political YouTubers use 5 to 15 is considered likely, so technically you should put Alaska as likely because it was only went to Trump by 10. But that's besides the point. In raw votes, Trump only won Alaska by 30,000 votes. That's a similar vote separation to Wisconsin. So yes, in raw vote totals, Alaska was comparable to Wisconsin in 2020. When looking at this, it seems like Alaska will be competitive and maybe even be the next Georgia. However, in reality, Alaska is out of reach for the Democrats unless something major were to happen. Alaska is very close in vote totals simply because no one lives there. A 20,000 vote separation in Wisconsin is a 0.66 margin. A 30,000 vote win in Alaska is a 10 plus margin. So it's not really a fair analogy to compare raw vote totals in this instance. With that out of the way, here's why Alaska will maybe trend a bit further left, but I think will stay Republican for a while. First off, you see, Alaska's #1 economic artery is oil, an issue that Democrats immediately lose ground on. In a state that depends on oil to fuel its economy, you will not win an election by saying you want to end fracking. This is the Republicans' biggest advantage in states like this, the run on oil. The second reason Alaska will stay is its religion. Alaska is comparable to Utah and has some of the most religious populations in the country. Alaska and Utah also have another thing in common. They are both red states that voted heavily for a third party in 2016 and for Biden in 2020. Yes, Trump won both these states, but not by the margins in 2012 and 2008. This is because many hardcore Christians and Mormons were turned off by Donald Trump. His vulgar language alienated this typical Republican voting bloc, so they voted third party and then for Joe Biden. With a DeSantis, or even just a slightly more soft-spoken Republican, these voters will return to the GOP. The third and final reason Alaska will stay red is guns. 64% of people in Alaska own guns. That's 64%. That's more than a half. A Democrat will never win in Alaska with those numbers. When you threaten to ban a tool, a toy, and a necessity that 64% of a state owns, it's kind of hard to win there. Just my opinion. Now, with these very favorable demographics for Republicans, this begs the question, why is Alaska trending left? Now, based on what we've read, you may think Christians not liking Trump is the reason. And now, while this may be true, population growth may also be to blame for Alaska's trends. Anchorage, the largest city and capital of the state, grew by 30,000 people from 2010 to 2019. And now this may not seem like a lot, but when Trump only won the state by 30,000 votes, as mentioned before, this could be a real issue for Republicans, especially since Anchorage is usually a Republican area that trended very blue in 2020. However, similar to Texas, the voters moving into Anchorage in Alaska may actually be more conservative. Why do I think this? It's simple. This is kind of a complex section, so I'll explain slowly, and if you have to, watch it again. There are lots of conservatives who have been voting third party. Let's look at the 2012 election, as you can see. Mitt Romney beat Barack Obama by 14 points. Now let's look at 2016. Trump beat Hillary in Alaska by 14 points as well. However, in 2016, as you can see, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate, received 5% of the vote. Alaska clearly had lots of third-party voters in that election, and most of these third-party voters were expected to swing to Joe Biden in 2020, and they did. Across the country, 4/5 of people who voted third party in 2016 voted for Joe Biden. This explains Alaska's shift to the left in 2020. If 5% of people voted for Gary Johnson in 2016, and they voted the same as all other third-party voters across the country, then Joe Biden would gain 4% of the vote in Alaska, as he did. And Alaska swung 4 points to the left. So in reality, shifting demographics may have helped Biden a bit, but if the GOP can win back these people who voted third party in 2016 and then for Biden in 2020, they will get right back to their 2012 margins. So in conclusion, Alaska has the demographics of a deep red state, lots of gun owners, an oil-driven economy, and very religious citizens. This state may have seen rapid growth in the past 10 years, especially in the Anchorage area. But similar to Californians moving to Texas, a good amount of the people moving to Anchorage are conservative. I'm sure lots of liberals are moving to Alaska too, but there are enough conservatives to balance it out for now. When we look at election results, it's clear conservatives dominate in Alaska politics. Technically, in 2016, conservative-leaning candidates received 19% of the vote when you include Libertarian Gary Johnson. So I'd say, if anything, there's room to grow for Republicans in Alaska. However, conservatives in Alaska are just simply not unified right now. Many Alaskan conservatives do not like Trump, so they voted third party in 2016 and then for Biden in 2020. These voters, similar to Mormons in Utah, are religious and were alienated by Trump's rhetoric. And that said, I'm 100% sure these voters can be won back in the future with the right messaging. Thank you for watching this Alaska analysis. I hope you enjoy it and learn more about the politics of the largest state in the Union. Sorry, Texas.